You are listening to the So Now What podcast with Lana Manikowski, episode number 153.
So now what? These three words raced through my mind time and time again during my journey through fertility treatments. I tried desperately to have a child, but never was able. I yearned for a community to join that could understand my struggles. I couldn't find one, so I created one with the So Now What podcast. I love that you found us.
Welcome back to the podcast. I am so glad that you are here. And today we're going to dive into a topic that many of us shy away from. It's the fear of moving forward after infertility. If you're on my mailing list, you might have gotten an email from me on Sunday asking you some pointed questions and sharing the story that was so impactful to me that I wanted to put a whole podcast episode behind it. It all stemmed from a Childless Not by Choice Facebook group, and there was a woman who posted on there that she is in her 60s, and for all these years, she has felt so disconnected from her life and from the people around her and her family because she wasn't a mom. And she went on to give some more detail around that about how painful it is all these decades later to be childless. And it really struck me, not from a place of judgment, not from this what's wrong with her judgy kind of attitude, but more so just really thinking about all these decades of her life that she's lived year after year, feeling this ache of her childlessness. So think about that for a moment. Decades. She has lived year after year with that ache of being childless and believing that time would allow her to feel relief from it and that time would heal that wound. And yet here she is in her 60s, still feeling like she's missing out on the life that she so wanted to create for herself. Not one with children, but a life where she felt connected to the people around her and that she felt accepted for who she was, even though she didn't have children. And in her post, she talked about how she just thought the more time that passed, she would figure out how to get over it. And I really want you to ask yourself this question and think about this today. What would it be like for you to feel the way that you feel today about your childlessness, say 5, 10, maybe 20 years from now? And I know that might be a hard question to face. I know it might be scary to think about where you're going to be in your 60s, but it's worth asking because the truth is that you don't have to spend the rest of your life feeling like you're missing out because you don't have children. I first want to acknowledge that it does feel hard to move forward. Let's talk about why it feels so hard to move forward. And you might think, I just won't be able to figure it out. I've tried so hard through my journey through fertility treatments, or I tried so hard to have a child and I couldn't figure it out. So why would this work? That's what happens when you go through fertility treatments and you're being labeled as a failed fertility patient, or you follow the protocol to a T and then it just doesn't work for you and end up giving you the child that you work so hard for. And your brain is basically just trying to protect you from that possibility of being let down or disappointed again. So it tells you that where you are right now, even though you don't feel your best and you look around and you want to feel better, it's telling you that you'll get through this and just hang on. This is good. Doesn't have to be great. And this is just how it is for people that don't have kids. You've probably gotten really good at silencing that part of your brain that wants you to grab for more and seek more and desire more because the thought of disappointment is crushing. We have been through so much disappointment. Your brain says, don't risk it. Stay here. It's safe. It might not be great, but at least you're getting through your days. At least you know how to manage how this feels right now. And because our brains are wired like that, it makes it hard to create change or move forward doing something different than what you've accepted as your comfort zone. And it's a defense mechanism that's designed to shield us from pain. And that's really what it is. God bless our brains. Like, thank you, brain, for wanting to shield me. But sometimes you've got to realize that that mechanism might be working against you. It might be keeping you stuck in a life that feels smaller than where it is that you want to go. You might even see maybe someone like me or other people that you might follow in this childless not by choice space on social media and think, oh, they're just lucky. They have something that I don't, or they were offered an opportunity that I don't have, or they have this secret sauce that worked for them that's not available to me. That is just a bunch of BS. I am no miracle story. I don't have a superpower that you were not born with. But what I do have is a moment that I'll never forget. A moment where I looked at myself in the mirror and admitted to myself that the life that I was living was not the life that I wanted for the rest of my life. And in that moment, I decided that I was willing to turn my life into something that I wanted, even though it didn't have the children that I dreamed of. Even though it turned out so differently than I ever could have imagined. And the heartbreak that I went through and the disappointment and disconnection was something that I was not prepared for how to manage. Even with all of that, I looked at myself in the mirror and I just leveled with myself and I said, we are going to figure this out. And that's basically where it is. There was no rocket science. There was no one who knocked on my door. There was no investment that I made that yielded thousands of dollars that allowed me the opportunity to pay for life coaching. Nothing. It was just me looking in the mirror and being honest with myself that I wanted more. And in that moment, when I decided to work with a life coach, that was the moment that I decided to invest in working with a life coach. Not because I knew how to fix my life, because I knew I didn't want to stay stuck. My first coach, although she specialized in weight loss, you've heard me talk about her before, Corinne Crabtree, she was really the first person that offered me the notion and the idea that I could believe something different about my life, even if it turned out so differently than I thought. Even if the rest of the world was looking at women who are childless after infertility through a lens that is so disempowering, I was able to change that narrative for me. And that is when I realized that I had the power to create a life I love. And that was when I decided that I wanted to offer that to other women like me, because I knew that there were no resources for women who are childless, not by choice, to figure out how to change that narrative, how to lean into a life, even though it looks so different than you thought. That's what called me to be here. Starting a podcast and telling my story might be the first opportunity that someone has ever heard their story through the lens of somebody else and felt inspired by it. And if I wanted more for myself, I believed that there were other women like you and other listeners out here and the students that I work with and Thrive After Infertility that wanted more too. But here's the thing, and I'm going to just be really blatantly honest with you this week, telling yourself that the timing isn't right, telling yourself that you don't have the money or that money's too tight. Your brain throws up a lot of excuses about why this is not right for you, why changing things and leaning into your life without children isn't possible for you to do. You might be telling yourself that the timing's not right, that time is going to eventually heal your wounds. And it's just your brain's way of keeping you from truly living the life that you want to have. I can tell you about me, but I'm guarantee you all these women that I've worked with don't have something that you don't have. Okay. One of my students came to me telling me that she felt like she was just getting by in life, that she was just kind of holding her breath and whatever the next day brought, she was just like holding on that she'd have what it took to get through the day. And then she'd come home, she'd collapse because she was exhausted, because she felt like she was showing up in her life as somebody that she really wasn't, because she was letting the punches hit her. And she didn't think it was possible to feel excited about her life or to feel excited about her future, because she'd spent years believing that motherhood was the only thing that would fulfill her. And I know I felt that way too, and you might also. But after doing the work and Thrive After Infertility, she started to see that her life had purpose and joy. She wasn't waking up every day waiting to see what shit was thrown at her. She decided that she was in charge of how she wanted to navigate life every day. Now I see she and her husband just looking so connected and looking so happy together. I see her excelling in her career. She recently got her PhD, something that I remember she and I talked about when we had our first Thrive call, that she so wanted to get her PhD, but she just couldn't figure out how to put it together, to put her thesis together on paper. To see like the happiness that she has on her face tells me that she realized that her value wasn't tied to motherhood. She's building deeper community. She's reaching out and branching out to other women who are childless and growing and childless and thriving. She's feeling connections with her friends with kids. I'll see pictures of her with her godkids. I remember that was something that was super hard for her to feel connected to the parents of her godchildren because she felt like they had the kids and she didn't, and she was second fiddle. She looks so happy whenever I see photos of her and her godchildren. Think of her as an example, but I really want you to think of you. What do you really want with your life? If you could pick just one word to describe how you want your life to feel, even though you're going to be childless the rest of your life, imagine it just like what 1 year from now. How do you want to feel 1 year from now? Do you want to feel confident? Do you want to feel excited? Do you want to feel powerful? Do you want to feel at peace? Take a moment and think about it, because the truth is, whatever word you choose, it's possible for you, but it's not going to happen by accident. It's not going to happen because the calendar has flipped and it's 2026 and all of a sudden time brought you this life on a platter that you've been dreaming about. It takes courage to step forward. It takes courage to say that you want more for yourself. It takes work to let go of the belief that time alone will fix things. Like we've been hearing that for generations. But most importantly, it takes support from you and support from people who have been down this path, because none of us are meant to do this alone. If that sounds like something that you're wanting more of, know that it's available to you. I know staying in your cocoon and feeling as though life is okay enough, but don't sell yourself short. There are women out here doing this amazing work, and they are no more special than you are. You are just as deserving as they are. The only difference is they said yes to them. There was this inkling inside of you, I know, to continue listening to this episode. So take that as your sign that you are ready for this. If you want to talk more, of course, you know that you could always book a Thrive call with me. I have my next class of Thrive After Infertility starting in February. So maybe this is your time to start saying yes to you and realizing that you are so much more in control of your future than it may have felt like during your years of infertility. Don't spend the rest of your life feeling like you're missing out. I wasted way too many of my years doing that. And I want you to know that you don't have to carry this ache forever. So I hope you have a beautiful week. I hope you really think about this and know that I love you. And remember that it's never too late to discover your meaning. I'll talk to you next week.
Hey, real quick, I just wanted to tell you about an awesome resource I created. If you have ever found yourself in conversations with people, or maybe people offering you suggestions about what you should do to become a mom, it's called the Top 27 Things People Say When You're Childless and How to Respond. You can get your copy free at lanamanikowski.com/things people say.